My name is Heather. I'm a grateful believer who is in recovery for surviving many forms of abuse, trauma, and codependency. I struggle with trust issues and fears. I'm going to start in a word of prayer. Dear God, I pray you just calm my heart. Help me be able to not be anxious and nervous. That I'll be able to share this without stuttering or going over and just be able to speak. I pray that eyes and ears will be open and people will be delivered. Thank you for what you're going to do. Amen. As far back as I can remember, I had felt stupid. At 15 months old, I suffered traumatic brain injury because I had fallen the whole story onto concrete, which significantly affected much of my development and thinking. I did not walk till age 2, and I didn't learn to read till 13. I was homeschooled. But really, my education was neglected because we just played outside and sometimes played in school, especially when the oil man came. As a young child, I was victimized by close family members, both a female and a male, which shattered trust in my young mind and left me wondering who to trust. My dad was a self-employed contractor, which had us working at a very young age. I remember by age 8, I was running across the room. Hard work, efficiency, and punctuality was demanded. My family was known as the hardest, fastest workers. My dad was a reformed alcoholic that had been physically abusive to my mom before their salvations. Even after their salvations, my parents frequently fought, with my dad often leaving the house. I remember thinking as a child, if my mom would just shut up and do as she was told, our home would be better. It left me feeling insecure and afraid, leaving me with a fear of abandonment and submission minded. I chose to try to find ways to keep peace, which often resulted in my own meltdowns. I didn't want to do anything to upset or cause arguments, but feeling invisible and wanting attention didn't make my needs any less. I coped by creating a dream world inside of my head to not feel the pain. Back then, I remember thinking, I just need to shut up and do as I'm told. My mom had depression, but it wasn't something our Christian culture talked about. I was 13 when my sister, age 16, was in a car accident with a semi. My sister had fallen asleep running into the back wheel of a semi, which partially severed her wrist, breaking both of her fingers and smashing her face. I know she had 14 surgeries. Earlier the year before, she had gotten suspended from Christian school for listening to rock music, and the Christian principal said the reason she got into the car accident was due to her rebellion. I came to believe that God punished people with horrible things like car accidents for disobedience. So I became the best obedient rule abider that I could become to gain approval. I didn't want anyone to really see me or know me because I believed the whole car accident was actually my fault because I told my sister I hated her the night before the accident. I bottled that feeling up and I went through the life thinking my whole existence was wrong. I learned to suppress emotions. I actually remember praying that God would take me when I was 13. Just, can I go to heaven? I learned to suppress emotions, but started hyperventilating and fainting when things got overwhelming. I also started using an inhaler during this time as well. In a very Christian culture, I performed as best as I knew how, becoming an editor of my high school yearbook, getting on the honor roll, MVP in volleyball and choir. I went on missions trips, traveling with my parents while they raised support to go to Romania as missionaries. I considered strongly about becoming a missionary to Mexico and worked 5 weeks at a Christian camp the summer before my senior year. I felt value in performing well. Then I went to Bible college, where I met my future husband, and we married 8 months later. He was finishing college when I became pregnant with our first child. We moved away from college and my family, and we moved to Indiana to learn Turkish because we were going to be missionaries to Turkey. But scratch that, they didn't have Turkish. So instead of Turkey, we ended up moving back to Wisconsin to live with his parents. My first pregnancy kept me very sick, losing weight, and I was put on bed rest at 5 months due to contractions. For a few years, my husband took on a leadership role at his childhood church. During that time, we experienced some challenges in the church we were attending, and we had to leave toxic environment. Changing churches, we moved forward in our faith by visiting an international ministry in Boston, Massachusetts, deciding to start raising support to go to Boston as a missionary. I helped renovate our home and minister in the multicultural neighborhood, loving on my neighbors. The home I brought my kids to was nothing glamorous. The kitchen was moldy, the roof leaked horribly, and a squatter had taken up residence before the move in and would knock on our door. He often, I think, stole things from our property as well. The yard had small shards of glass all over, and on occasion the basement had 18 inches of water in it. I had two small boys. This was not uncommon. I did this more than once. I had two small boys that ended up home renovating as my husband went to work at a local charter school. I had a growing resentfulness that I stuffed down with working hard. So in February in 2009, in these living conditions, my health declined and I had a lung collapse. I couldn't be the perfect wife and mom of our two boys. I had weird health issues, migraines with stroke like symptoms, seizure like muscle spasms. I was continuing to heal until August of 2009 when I collapsed my lung a second time, and this time requiring surgery. The recovery from surgery required my boys to be shipped to the in laws. After 5 weeks of recovery from surgery, I got my boys back and received word that my mom was in the hospital. Within a few days, I flew out to Colorado just in time before they pulled her off life support. My mom had died of an ear infection that went to the brain. Oh, I've never cried at this point. Only 6 weeks after my mom died, I had a miscarried a twin, and this was like from February, and this was into October. Um, Only 6 weeks after my mom died, I had miscarried a twin, and I was 6 weeks pregnant, but there was no heart rate. At my 6 week or 12-week pregnancy check, the doctor didn't know if it was a viable pregnancy, but I didn't doubt, and his heart rate was 160. In 2010, my third son was born. After over a year of health issues and the loss of my mom, God had remembered the blessing was my third son, and honestly, he is still a blessing. And yes, but I'm going to flash forward just a minute so you can see what God does. About 2 years ago, as I was praying to start a ministry at our church, God took me to this cloudy sky. It was like the sky. I was laying down in the front of my church, praying about what He wanted, and this cloud opened up, and I saw Jesus holding a baby. And immediately I knew it was my child, that I had miscarried, and He told me I didn't need the shame that I carried from His death, and that He was taking care of her. My kids and I were sure, we determined it was a girl, and I can't remember, I think it was Lydia, we named it. Life did not get easier with the passing years, and as we moved a few more times, eventually landing in the country to start an apple orchard, there was always something new. I went to counseling and started attending a women's sexual abuse support group. I started working on the issues inside, but I wouldn't admit the various mental health issues that I was struggling with. Because anxiety, depression, that kind of stuff was thin. So I definitely didn't have those issues. That they were growing with my inability to perform well due to grief and health problems. I was pregnant with my fourth child, first girl, which made me question how I wanted to be treated as a woman. What was I told and thought was true was my existence and value was placed on my husband. So I felt like God was constantly unhappy with me, as if He was ashamed of me and I was no good and unworthy. After 14 years, I had four children, three of them having different forms of disabilities, moved 16 times, renovated five homes, started renovating a small hotel with a house. My husband had been abusive. I was more than exhausted. My soul ached. I was on a hamster wheel with no end in sight, no hope of change, and it felt like a madman was leading the way. Since I was 16, I had read my Bible, prayed, went to church, but I never felt like I really mattered to anyone. I was critical and judgmental, but deep down I was fearful of losing those closest to me. I worked incredibly hard to gain approval, performed, earned favor, and behaved perfectly. On April 25, 2017, life changed quite drastically when my husband told me that he was done being married, packed up all of his things out of the closet that night, and moved to a different room. Fear of abandonment heightened here. The next day, on my 36th birthday, I left to go speak with a pastor as I was very emotional. And while I was away, my husband told my kids that we were getting divorced. He moved out that day. I continued to abandon myself to take care of the needs of my children. God met me in this season with intimate walks and talks. He woke me up in the morning, telling me to go. I walked to Lake Superior. We lived in Grand Marais, Minnesota, and it felt like he held my hand. It was so real. He once told me he wanted me to go buy something at the local farmer's market after our walk, and I told him, you know, my banking account. And and so I got there and I went to a friend's stall and I was just looking, and a friend came up and handed me cash and told me to buy something from her sister's booth. Another time, he told me I was going to give me another gift, so I sat down looking at Lake Superior, and he told me he was going to heal me of severe complex migraines. It was the weirdest thing, but I remember opening my mouth and coughing, and he delivered me of migraines. In 2019, a sequence of events happened in about 6 months. Formal moral choices, that relationship ending, a fire to our chicken coop that connected to our home that caused smoke inhalation, bone bruises to my leg, and my son breaking his leg in two places, requiring surgery, the sudden death of my dad, an aunt, and two friends. The shame, pain, and grief. As a child, I had accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior, but until I made poor moral choices and was forgiven, did I grasp the grace and love of God. No longer did my performance matter or the good I did, but as I worked out my own salvation with fear and trembling, I grasped what it was like to wear his robe of righteousness that covered my sin and disgrace. Due to codependency and fears in relationships, I went through 3 engagements, with the last one being a risky relationship with a guy relapsing with prescribed drugs and alcohol. I put my children at risk with my unwillingness to face reality, and for an entire month, my kids and I were left homeless. Um, but in less than a month, God did bring me a home. I think I missed that in the notes here. But my mental health had hit an all-time low. I had known I had issues because I had talked to a therapist, but I did not want the diagnoses because I was concerned for my children in their custody and stuff. So I got therapy and diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. My therapist started EMDR, but quickly realized that I had complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Stopped using EMDR. EMDR caused me to wake up gasping for air from my body, remembering more abuse than my memories. I finally came to the end of myself. I didn't work for 7 months, just sitting and staring, not able to function. Not long after going back to church, my church is Lighthouse Christian Church in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. The pastor's wife prayed along with others who ministered to me. God started to take away the severe anxiety. It was less debilitating. It wasn't all at once. Depression became less and less. And even at times when I get sad, it never goes down to where it used to be. CPTSD, I still get triggered, but it doesn't have the same power as it once did. There have been people God placed in my path along the way. Right after my divorce, a friend from my previous church would drive 5 hours monthly to love my kids and take over my work duties. She would kick me out, and I didn't have money. She'd give me a 20 and told me to go. She loved me when I didn't feel lovable, making me a part of her family. She bought gifts for my kids, took them out for Christmas. She discovered the gold that was already in me and gave me an example to follow. I would not be the person I am without her guidance. Thankfully, I have a sponsor and accountability partners who accept me as I am and encourage me and challenge me to grow. My life verse is Luke 1:37. Nothing is impossible with God. And I see its power in my testimony. God continues to rewrite my story. I've chosen to trust what he said about me and that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, which means he stood back in awe of what he created, which makes me awesome. Since I know I'm a treasurer, I work at setting healthier boundaries. I used to say I set healthy, but I work at it. Where access is restricted and my vulnerabilities are better kept safe. On my road to recovery, I've had to own up to the issues inside and forgive myself. Although abuse has caused a lot of fear and trust issues, his faithfulness and steadfast love has given me courage and strength to face traumatic events. I have waves of anxiety at times, and recently it got a little worse. But worship, dance, and prayer help me to release and give it over to God. I love dancing to worship. Encountering God in the situations have left me, uh, encountering God in the situations that have left me traumatized inside has been the most healing. I try to spend at least 1 hour a week where I sit, and 1 hour seems to not be enough, where I sit in silence with God. I invite him into my life. Sometimes it's just silence, there's nothing. I try to be quiet. It's hard sometimes. My life and in pain and struggles. And one time he brought me to my childhood where I was hiding with my hands over my eyes under a table in my underwear. My dad found me and he spanked me. And through a childish sexual abuse mind, I felt I was disgusting and dirty. And then I was made to be abused. Poppy is my name for Heavenly Father. He kept taking me to this place, but he replaced it, where he told me, naked or clothed, that I was pure. In a vision, I saw pictures of myself dancing as a child, and we weren't allowed to dance because I was Baptist. And as I grew up, I was in a white dress, and he put a crown on my head, and he called me his queen. God gives us the authority to rule and reign with him, to overcome, as the verse here is, by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. During a season of moving closer to my ex-husband, I experienced severe anxiety, but God kept bringing me feathers. So I'm Heather, and I'm called Heather Feather. And once I looked up and I saw a feather floating in my bathroom. Another time I was at a craft show and I saw a light. It was like a light, and then a feather just came down. And oh yeah, so I had this tattoo done. I don't know what your views are on, but it says there's a quote that says, "Hope is the thing with feathers; it lingers in the air and never." Hope is the thing with feathers; it sings a song and never stops at all. And this is me and my 4 kids, and we found freedom and hope because of Christ. Yeah. So Psalms 99, I would listen to this over and over and over again. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely he will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. There's so many things we're afraid of. He's going to save us. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the dark, nor the plague that destroys at midnight. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right, but it will not come near you or me. You will only observe with your eyes and see the punishment of the wicked. If you say, Lord, the Lord is my refuge, and you make the Most High your dwelling, no harm will overtake you. No disaster will come near your tent, for he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. I used to have that right over my son's bed. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the cobra. You will trample the great lion and the serpent because he loves me, says the Lord. I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. He will call on me and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. God called me out of timidity, introvertedness, as I listened to other stories and needs, giving me great courage and strength. So I spent a close to 3 years working to get a Celebrate Recovery started at my church. I honestly felt like I couldn't see one step in front of the other, but I sought God's heavenly kingdom first, and I believe God will bless everything I put in. Even though Celebrate Recovery recently closed after only 11 months in operation, I learned valuable tools and given training that I will take along my journey. I'm getting certified in life coaching and mental health, trauma, and recovery. And I'm not sure what God's going to do in that. In the last few months, I've struggled with anxiety and fears of rejection, abandonment due to recent events, and the uncertainty of the future. I try to take every single thought captive and give it to God, casting it to Him. But I do not do this perfectly. There are days when my thoughts still spiral out of control. I say I do not partner with fear and anxiety, and when I do partner with fear and anxiety, I confess it and I renounce any lies about myself and about God. I then ask God to speak truth to me and my heart and my situation. Our church does an inner healing prayer called Good Soil. It's from Sozo, which is in the Bible as wisdom or counsel, and that helps it with me is healing as well. Gratitude is by far the greatest tool because the sooner I can thank God in the struggle, the sooner I gain the victory. Also, when I lived in Minnesota, Sarah Morrison, an elder from a church there, shared with me that worship is scientifically proven to draw the focus of the brain from the emotional center, the amygdala, to the thinking part, frontal lobe. It takes from being consumed by negative emotion to being able to see and think of solutions. It's amazing. I always say, we should get excited. Yeah. So I always say, God isn't when He says rejoice evermore, pray without ceasing, and everything gives thanks. He wasn't narcissistic, and He also knew how He made us. He made us to glorify Him, and so He made us because He loved us. Being a survivor of childhood trauma, dysfunction, neglect, and sexual abuse, I was not given a manual or understanding of what healthy looked like. But now I'm learning and experiencing intimacy with God, where He meets me daily, whispering how He loves me when I'm imperfect. And recently, the verse that I've dwelt on is Romans 9:25b through 26. Those who were not my people, I will call my people. And her who was not beloved, I will call beloved. In the very place where it was said to them, you are not my people, there they will be called sons and daughters of the living God. I have come to know God, Jesus, in a deeper way, to see that I'm not now or never have been stupid, like I once believed. He is so good to us, faithful, just, lovely, true. I could go on about who He is, but right now, personally, I find Him to be my comforter, my encourager, my best friend, my provider, my protector, my strength, and my courage. I'm reminded often that God has good plans even in the hard days, and that He is producing in me something good. There is hope, and there is healing. Thank you for letting me share.